What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fresh Podcast, where we bring you everything fresh in entertainment. I'm your host, Drew Brumfield, and join with me, as always, my good friend Seth.
Hello.
And my good cousin Randy.
Howdy.
Howdy. All right, so it's been a while. Hope you guys are doing well.
It has been quite a while.
It has been.
Okay, all right.
Let's just talk over each other.
Professionals.
That's a podcast report.
You can tell we're not all in the same room. But anyway.
Wow, really
been
break
good.
the fourth wall there. Whatever.
You know, we're all in different locations, but we try.
It's a lot's happened since the last episode, but we are back and we are talking about the thing we just always talk about, which is Star Wars, specifically the Disney Plus live action shows. So that consists of Mandalorian season 1, season 2, and then the Book of Boba Fett, and lately Obi-Wan Kenobi. I meant the latest, but you get the idea. Anyway, I guess kind of as a whole, how do you guys feel about, like, just generally about them doing more shows instead of movies? Because that seems to kind of be like the pattern that Disney and Star Wars and other things are doing, where like they're putting more effort into like TV shows and expanding the universe that way.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna hop in first, and I'm not gonna take long with this. I've for the most part, I've enjoyed these shows, and we'll get more into it later. But I do think there is a lot of room for improvement because I do feel like there's only like a couple of these shows that really have like almost movie quality, and we'll get into it later. But I think I'm excited for the shows to like explore more nuanced like corners of like the Star Wars universe and maybe like flesh out certain characters more. Yeah. But there's certain things that they need to up their game on.
Randy, how you feel about that?
I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. There has been somewhat of a pattern, but I mean, if the pattern works, keep doing it. But to where it's kind of like they always save like their big reveal for like the second to last episode. And I guess a lot of shows do that, so I can't really fault Disney for doing that and the Star Wars shows for doing that. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm a sucker for Star Wars. I got freaking Star Wars tattooed on me. So, not the word, but I have a Star Wars tattoo. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, every time a Star Wars show comes out, I'm gonna watch it. And chances are, I'm gonna enjoy it. For the most part. Some more than others. But yeah, I agree that exploring more nuanced characters that may have had a short time on screen during a movie, or exploring characters that we just didn't know that much. Like we have Andor coming up, and I'm really excited for that because it's new characters, so that'll be really fun.
Yeah.
But overall, it's good.
Yeah.
I enjoy it. 2 thumbs up.
Something I found interesting, and this is mainly because like it's Star Wars and they very much like protect their canon, but something that I found interesting is that so far it's always been shows that are like in the past, quote unquote, or like, yeah, it's different eras, but at the end of the day, like, we kind of know where each of these except for Mandalorian, but we still can have a general idea of like where these characters have to end up, because we know what happens like we know the future. We know at some point First Order takes over, or for some people, like, well, they're still in the Empire, and that's just kind of an interesting thing that they've had these shows, but they've never put it like past the sequel trilogy or even gone into that era yet. All 3 of these they're actually kind of unique because they're in the original trilogies technically.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that like they're mainly sticking to this kind of part and this era of Star Wars, and they haven't really done to either gone way in the past or gone like super in the future. But yeah, like you guys said, we'll get more into it. So I guess we can start it off. And how we'll do this, we'll talk about each show and then at the end kind of rank them as we find appropriate. But let's start off with like the big grand opening. The very first one was just The Mandalorian. And off the bat, I will say it's a very brave move to, hey, we're doing this big, high budget Star Wars show, and it's going to be a television show. It's coming to our new streaming service, which we really need a lot of people to get because, they're trying to compete with Netflix and Hulu and HBO and all these big things. So what do? We make a completely new character, put it in a time frame where we haven't really seen a whole lot of. Now we have, but at the time we haven't really explored this area. So it was and it was a different kind of, show. It wasn't. There weren't Jedi. There was not very, or at least we thought at the very beginning. But it's this bounty hunter who we don't even see his face. He doesn't talk much. And it was kind of like a really brave move to start this versus like starting with like a Han Solo TV show or starting with an Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show or, having a character that we all recognize. This is this new person. But clearly the first season of Mandalorian and like we'll get into how well it did in our opinions, but like critically and commercially, this was a slam dunk. This did perfectly. This did amazing. Just look at even non-Star Wars fans know about this show, mainly because of its second main character, Grogu, also known as Baby Yoda. But this show exploded, and this show is the reason Disney Plus is killing it in the streaming, and the reason we have these other shows. Like, even non-Star Wars fans, while they may call him a different name, know who Baby Yoda is. I even remember, like, when me and Randy were visiting our aunt and uncle in South Carolina, our Aunt Becky was watching The Mandalorian just because of the cute little Baby Yoda. But she was watching Star Wars, and that's a really impressive thing to... Because you can really put any Star Wars content out there, and us three will watch it because we're big Star Wars people. But to get a show like this where everybody, very casual people, will sit down and watch the show is like really impressive and really hard to do. So I guess like, what do you guys think? Yeah, what do you guys think of the first season?
I'm gonna sort of slightly disagree a little bit, and I'm sorry. It's just that like I don't see this as I see this as a very tactical move, but not a brave move to start it off with like The Mandalorian. I think if you think about it, in like the way the Star Wars fan base was at this point, it was obviously very split. We had just gotten off like the sequel trilogy, and I think that's why I think that's why Disney hasn't really done like a show or a movie with the sequel trilogy since Rise of Skywalker, is because like it's sort of tainted ground right now. I think while I would say most casual audiences will like Rise of Skywalker, I think some of the more diehards have like a lot of criticisms towards it, and I think in a way Disney is still trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. So starting it off in like a era that's a little different, but also like sort of familiar, like post Return of the Jedi, where you're still dealing with like the Empire to a degree, stormtroopers and like and bounty hunters and that jazz. It does feel very familiar. I also think that like the reason why Disney Plus has been successful as it is, even with like The Mandalorian, which you're right, it doesn't have like maybe a name draw like a Kenobi or a Luke Skywalker or a Boba Fett series would have drawn, but I think the fact that it's Star Wars means people are going to come to it, and the fact that there never was like a live action Star Wars show before immediately puts eyes on it. So people will subscribe to a subscription service just for one or two shows. We see HBO kind of do that model as well, where HBO like series are like kind of considered premium TV content. Like people want to see like when Game of Thrones was active, True Detective, I believe maybe Succession, I believe is also on HBO. People will go to where the good TV is. So I think that's what we can attribute more to like the Mandalorian success is like it was a very tactical move on Disney's part where it's like, how do we get people to subscribe to our service? We give them the one place where they cannot watch this anywhere else. Like you have to, if you want to see the newest thing in Star Wars, you have to subscribe to Disney. Plus, also when you subscribe to Disney Plus, you're also getting the promise of like, eventually the Marvel shows when they finally got there. So those are like my thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well, what do you? Okay.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna ask, well, what do you think? And also, Randy, you can answer this question. Of what do you think of as the show itself? Because despite what you think of, if it was very tactical or if it was a brave move, it worked. Like this show is very successful in the terms of like not only reaching diehard like fans, but a lot like very casual people too. I mean, you can't go anywhere without seeing like Baby Yoda merch or Baby Yoda merch.
The child.
The child. Like that's really, like he is really what sold the show. But like, what is your guys' opinion on the first season? Randy.
1,000% that like it totally got like Grogu, Baby Yoda, the child, whatever you want to call him, sold the show along with this really badass character. I remember seeing the ads for it, and they show it off in the first episode where he pulls that guy back into the bar as that like circular door closes in on him, and I just thought that was like the coolest thing in the ad. I'm like, I have to see whatever this show is, which, I mean, I was gonna do anyway because of Star Wars, but I think that also like you have this really cool character that kind of piques people's interest. We don't know anything about him, and then it's also not constrained really to the movies because it's after Return of the Jedi, so we don't have to deal with being like, oh, how does this affect Luke or Vader or Sidious or whatever. And it's still close enough to the original trilogies. It's not going to affect the sequels. So I thought it was, it piqued a lot of people's interest by doing that. And I think it definitely had a couple stumbles in certain sections. Like, for example, I think a lot of people were not too interested with the story arc of just Mando comes to a village with Grogu and they have to teach these villagers how to fight against the Empire. Or at least it didn't seem that interesting to people who've watched a bunch of Star Wars stuff, because that's a story arc they already did in Clone Wars.
I was about to say Clone Wars did it first.
Yeah. But I think it sold really well, and then having oh gosh, what's his name? Main baddie with the Darksaber.
Moff Gideon.
Yeah. Thank you. Just showing the Darksaber for people who know what it is, that's awesome. People who don't know what it is, they're like, what's this cool black looking lightsaber sword thing? Like, I'm so like, what is that?
Sorry.
I think they did a really good job of saying, look at all this new stuff for people who, never seen it in live action, and look at all this cool returning stuff for people who've watched everything.
Yeah.
And I think writing-wise is also done pretty well, despite some of the other lackluster episodes. They seem to kick it up a notch into season 2, but we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, I noticed, I've had this conversation with other friends that, like, this show feels and is very much like a video game in the sense of, especially season 1 and even into season 2, but, like, it's very much like, here's your main quest, and his main quest is getting the child back. But before he can do that, he has to go do fetch quests. He has to do side missions. He has to get a better armor set. Like, it's very much, he takes detours. He does side missions, which was interesting. And I understand you have to do that for, it has to be an episodic thing. You're stretching this out. It's not a 2-hour movie anymore. It's a multiple hour series where you're allowed to stretch it out. You're allowed to have more character development. And I've also noticed that like this is I don't know if it's like the first time we've seen it, but it's like one of the, at least it was a more popular example of this is a Star Wars story, but it's very small. Like there really isn't a war going on. You know, he's not trying to fight everyone in the Empire. He's not trying to bring down the Emperor. There is a villain, but there's no like big baddie that's like, I'm gonna use the Force and shoot 1,000,000 lightning bolts into the sky with 1,000,000 Star Destroyers. Like it's not that. Like the big action
that giant
scene.
lightning bolt strike was awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean that was awesome, but there's not gonna be any of that. Like most of the time, his big fights is like 10, 15 people, or like gets into the 50s towards the finale, but it is a bit more of a smaller show, at least compared to like the rest of like like what we could compare it to at the time of this grand Star Wars universe. But this was a bit more of a kind of smaller personal story, which is something I enjoyed. But this first season also does like kind of start this trend, and I guess technically it didn't start this trend in Star Wars, but it kind of popularized it. Of here's this father figure who has to take over a small child and then lead him, and then grows into more of that parent role. It's not a stereotype that it invented, but it very much like
Sure is one that it perfected.
it really does perfect it, and like we'll see it later
It
on.
gets me every time.
It does. I mean, it's an emotional thing, but it's funny if you look at Dave Filoni is one of the creators of this. If you looked at like a lot of his work, excuse me, he has a common theme. His common themes are father figures, and wolves, and then like found families. And like you'll look at like Clone Wars, this even back in his early work with he worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender. Like there's a lot of those themes, but this one it very much. I mean, it follows that formula pretty well. Makes it. There are a few points where it's like does make it a bit predictable, but overall, I'd say like as a starting point, this was a really good foot forward. Especially, I mean, like Seth said, with the thing before this was the sequels that had a very mixed reaction. It's not something we'll probably get too into today, but yeah, you were either on one side or the other, and you couldn't be in between because then both sides hated you, and it was very much like a toxic. I don't know if I would want to say toxic, but like everyone had, yeah,
It's toxic.
everyone had an opinion on it. So to have a show come out and like essentially like new character, different world, and it'd be heavily like accepted, old Star Wars fans, new Star Wars fans, casuals, hardcore. There are a few people that like when this came out, a lot of people had very positive things to say about it. Even like the criticisms that were coming out at the time didn't seem big, because I think a lot of Star Wars fans just wanted a win, and no one was expecting this to be as hype as it was. But I mean, it did really well. It was a good like starting off point. Was there anything else you guys wanted to say about like that first season before we go to the next one?
I'll jump in with my thoughts because I think I didn't really say what I actually thought of the season. I think I'm more just got off on my own weird stuff.
You were more just you just had to prove me wrong. You just had to go against me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's the only reason I got on this podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
But like,
it's not like we're friends or anything.
I think with like the Mandalorian season 1, I think is good for the most part, but I think it falls into like a trap of like a lot of, and granted, it's not just this show. Like I think a lot of other shows do this, but it does fall into a trap where it gets into like a sort of side quest of the week kind of style, which granted, a lot of television is like that, and it does lead me to think I like Mandalorian quite a bit. I think I just enjoyed just the general vibe of that show, since it does kind of like it's smaller scale. It's a little bit more like gritty and into like the criminal underworld of the Star Wars universe. But I do think that because except for like the first couple of episodes and the last couple of episodes, I think a lot of the episodes in between are just side quests. They don't really move the plot that much in a meaningful way. And for me, I kind of just started losing a lot of like interest with the show because of it. Not that like there was not one episode that was like, oh, this is just straight up terrible. I think all of them were of at least of a certain quality, which is good.
Yeah.
It's just that like, if you ask me about like what I thought of Mandalorian season 1, there's a part of me that just kind of wants to say, you could probably just watch the first and last couple episodes and you'll be fine. And yeah, that's basically it. That's all I really have to say with the Mandalorian. I think it's good, but I think it could be better.
Yeah. I don't know. I will say I enjoy the show. And like I said earlier, yeah, you're right. It does get very episodic, and very much like a couple episodes do feel like filler. And I remember kind of at the time when it came out, the hype for Star Wars was, excuse me, just like so real and so big that I don't know if people cared as much. It was just Star Wars and it was happening and everyone was okay with it. But it's one of those things like
people are gonna watch it no matter what.
Yeah, I mean we are, yeah, of course. But like, I think you're right. Looking back on it, there is a lot of dragging out of certain episodes. And I will say there are episodes that are in between that are important, and I would say like, yeah, definitely, keep that, watch that one. Because I'm looking through the episode list and I'm like, I mean, obviously you gotta watch the first. I would say the second and third are important, but yeah, once it gets to, chapter 4, the sanctuary, where Randy talked about we gotta teach the farmers how to fight. And then the next one, the gunslinger, where it's like, yes, that's where you meet Finnick, but other than that, like, it's not super important. I would say the last 3 episodes, I really enjoyed The Prisoner, and then the last 2 episodes are pretty important because that's where you really meet Moff Gideon and kind of get a little bit more of the main plot. But yeah, there's a lot of in between that doesn't quite match up to some of the other episodes. But when we go to season 2, do you guys think like it's more of the same, or do you think that they kind of started fixing those issues? Because before any other show, they did get a second season of this out.
Yeah, I think that's, and I think I wanted to like add on to that too. It's like I don't hate Mandalorian season 1. I do like it quite a bit, but I do think season 2 is really good because they address a lot of like the issues that were in season 1. There is a certain side questy element to certain episodes, but for the most part, it feels like that it's a lot more focused. It's more focused on like the relationship between Mando and Grogu and trying to like get him back with like, with his people, which in this case is the Jedi. And I think it's a lot more like a better show because of that. There's a much greater focus on that sort of like journey for Mando. And I think that's why I enjoyed it. And it's definitely one I recommend because we gone on about it before. Yeah. Like, if you want to really check out our thoughts on it, go watch the podcast. The podcast episode we did on like ranking the episodes.
Yeah, we did every single one.
Yeah, but like that season 2 like took it to a whole new level. Like one of my favorite episodes, which you could argue is a little bit side questy, was the one where is the Jedi, the one where like Ahsoka Tano is like reintroduced into the Star Wars universe.
Well, that bring. Sorry, go ahead.
That was like one of my favorite episodes, and largely, if you think about it, it was very side questy. The only thing they needed was just Ahsoka to be like, "Hey, take Grogu here." That's all that she really needed to tell Mando. But Mando stuck around, and we had like just a really cool, like sort of like Kurosawa-esque samurai story with Ahsoka facing off with the I don't know what they were called. They fought with a big metal stick.
People with stick.
I don't remember what her name was, but
yeah, it was a cool fight though. That's what really mattered. It was a cool fight. You got to see Ahsoka do really cool stuff. I don't know what else to put it. Just really cool stuff.
It was the first time we ever actually saw a live action Ahsoka, which does actually like bring me to one of the things I was going to ask you guys is the main difference between season 1 and season 2 is season 1 is very much like this is its own story. There's sometimes you get sneak peeks and hints that like, oh, there's other characters out there, you know, they might name drop something. But in season 2, that's at like, now we have full on cameos. Like you said, the Jedi, which is one of the best episodes in there, like they come in and do the plot. And then spoilers for the very end, obviously we get Luke Skywalker. So it's very much, season 2 kind of is where they started to be like, okay, let's take this story now and put it in Star Wars. Like, let's start adding the traditional characters and stuff to it. So I guess, like, Randy, what do you think about, I guess, comparing the two? And do you like the fact that now we're getting cameos, now we're getting characters that more the hardcore fans would recognize?
I guess here I'll touch on season 1 for just a second. I know we were saying that some of the middle episodes were not important, but they didn't become important to season 2 because I believe pretty much every character that we are introduced to in season 1 that kind of like had their own episode, like here's this character, let's introduce them and do a little side quest with them sort of situation. They come back and then are important in season 2 in some way or another. And then we also get those cameos that you were just talking about, to where for diehard fans, it's kind of one of two camps to where they're either like, cool, like I'm really interested that they started incorporating Boba Fett and like turns out he survived the Sarlacc and we can see him at the very end of episode 1 and then he comes back in I forget which episode exactly, but he comes back in in season
6. It's
2.
It's in
episode
season
6. Okay.
Yeah, that's where you actually see him again, and he's talking. He's not just in the background. Yeah,
he's not just in the background. We also get Finnick back that episode.
Yeah.
We also get Bo-Katan for the first time in live action.
Yep.
And so, seeing these characters come back that we already, seeing these characters come back that we already knew and already had a relationship is, in one camp, good for diehard fans to where they're like, oh, this is really cool to see them in their live action. Some people, and I understand kind of why, we're like, oh, they already had like kind of their story wrapped up for the most part in their own thing. Or just, they wanted Mando to be its own thing because they were just so tired with the Skywalker saga at this point. Because, you know, we already had 9 movies of Skywalkers. And so while these people aren't directly related to Skywalker, although Luke does come in at the end.
Other
than that, but I mean, if you've watched a bunch of the other Star Wars content, we've seen these characters already. So some people, I can understand why some people are like, I just want something new and completely different. But it just depends on who you are at that point in time. I really enjoyed it because I'm a sucker and for Star Wars, so it's just like, you know, Ahsoka comes out and she has her 2 white lightsabers, and I pointed and I went, oh, I clapped, I did it. She did the thing.
She did the thing.
Yeah. So, like, I enjoyed it, but I pointed and I clapped.
I remember watching season 2 and like a friend who's like not as like into Star Wars is like, is that character important? And I'm like, yes, and like I really want to tell you about her, but like if you actually get interested, it's like a 7-long animated series on why she's cool. So just accept me saying she's cool. And he's like, all right, cool. But yeah, we talked really. If you like Seth said on the other podcast where we rank these episodes, we talk a lot about the Jedi. That's episode 5, and yeah, that's the. I think we all kind of agreed that was the best in the series, so I won't get onto it too long. But yeah, that episode's amazing.
I also want to throw in like with talking about like these cameos like being a big part of like season 2. I want to say that like I think one thing they did really well is like the cameos added to the story. I don't think it like detracted. It wasn't like, hey guys, look, it's Luke Skywalker. He's in the show now. Like he had a narrative purpose to be there, like most of the other cameos. And I think that's what kind of elevates season 2 a bit for me, is that like they're not just there because, hey, you know these characters. They're there for a very specific reason, and it serves the narrative purpose. And I think that's why I think these are cameos done well.
Yeah.
Season 2 nails that, at least. Yeah,
I agree. It also, all the characters that are added, it's a lot of them, like, I say all the characters. There's really 2 that, like, we've seen before that aren't from just season 1. Well, actually, no. Excuse me. 3. Bo-Katan. And I keep forgetting Boba Fett. Okay, so there's a lot that I'm forgetting now that I'm looking at this. But a lot of them, like, it's characters that some of these we haven't seen up until their point. Like, Bo-Katan and Boba Fett, Boba Fett, it wasn't confirmed he was alive. So we don't actually know where their journey leads. So that's really interesting. But then others, like Ahsoka and Luke, we know, if you're a hardcore fan for Ahsoka, but we all know where Luke ends up and what happens to him. So I think it adds that, like, extra element of, like, well, how did they go from this point, like, for Luke, happy and starting this academy, to what we see him in the sequels. So that kind of adds another element. But like you said, it never takes away from the story. It never feels like they're just in it to be in it. We'll get to an example of that later. But yeah, I really like season 2. It does fix a lot of the issues, and it does feel a bit less side quest of the week. There's a few episodes, but not too much. One episode I did really want to highlight before moving on is in season 2. It's just the Believer, and in like paper, I thought it was just going to be a filler until we get to the finale, and because it's also one of the few episodes that doesn't have, the main star of this, Grogu. But I think that's also one of my favorite episodes because it actually it takes this like philosophy of the Mandalorian and his whole idea that he's been building for a season and a half, and then just flips it on its head from an actor who does not like Star Wars. I think it's Bill Burr, I believe. And I really like that episode because, yeah, while there's action and while there's all these things happening, it's a lot of that episode is just 2 people talking and talking ideologies. And that's what's the most interesting part about it. Like, there's, Boba Fett's in his ship, and that's cool, and he drops the thing. But, like, the most interesting thing is just...
Pointed and I clapped.
I pointed and I clapped. Yeah, he dropped the seismic shard. I went, yay. But what I enjoyed more about episodes like that and during that is that there's just times where these characters are just, like, sharing ideologies. And that's really interesting to me. Same thing with, like, when he gets to the Jedi and he's talking to Ahsoka about, how they train younglings. And she's like, yeah, we take them from their parents and they're supposed to be isolated and no emotions. And he's like, that is literally the exact opposite of what I was raised. Like, because the Bandos thing is, it's all about a creed. It's all about family. It's all about, like, one unit. Like, you're all supposed to be together. So it's just really interesting. Yeah, this is the way. But yeah, I think Mando season 2 definitely was an improvement. But So that was definitely the way. And now we're going to move our way onto the show that came after it. Almost kind of a spin-off of The Mandalorian, which is the Book of Boba Fett.
Definitely a spinoff.
Yeah. So...
It literally played a trailer for it at the end of season 2.
Yeah. Yeah, this show is very much riding off the coattails of the success of the first 2 Mandalorian seasons. Like, it's like, oh, you like this thing? Well, let's keep going. I remember when a lot of people saw this, they were super excited because they're like, oh, Boba Fett's finally going to get his own show. He's going to be in every episode. He's going to have his own thing. We're finally going to learn more about him.
Which we do.
Yeah, which you do, but...
We'll get to what you're alluding to later.
Yeah, but yeah, I'll get back to that later. But how did you guys feel about the Book of Boba Fett? Anyone can answer. Okay.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
That sounds good.
Professionals, everyone. Don't try this at home. Only professional podcasters.
I have mixed feelings. I'm looking back at it now, and I am enjoying the first few episodes. As it did delve into Boba Fett and kind of how he changed that ideology to where he was just going around working for the Empire occasionally and just, being a bounty hunter, doing bounty hunter things, not caring who hires him, and just being like, yeah, I got the job done. Give me my money. And it delves into how he kind of begins to realize that a unit and a family, a clan, is...
Family.
Family.
He becomes Vin Diesel.
Wrong series.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is more important, and how he begins to kind of understand the Sand People. And this was also one of our first few... It's one of the few looks we get at Sand People culture, which is interesting. We got a little bit of it in Book of Boba Fett. Or not Book of Boba Fett, that's the one we're talking about. In Mando.
Mando, yeah.
I believe in the first episode of season 2, I believe we figure out that they can communicate to people who don't speak their language, which I don't remember what it's called, kind of basically with sign language, which is really interesting. And I was like, oh, I never would have thought of that, but that makes total sense.
But Randy, I don't understand. They're supposed to be animals, and we slaughter them like animals.
I hate them.
And not just the men, but the women.
All right, we're done.
All right, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I
feel like that's like a very dangerous territory to say it like that, especially if someone like, I know it's Star Wars podcast, but they didn't catch on to the meme of that. That'd be like pretty fucking.
All right, bad. Okay. Come on. Do you actually think they're gonna realize I'm quoting something, right?
You called them that. You said they're animals, so they should be.
That's what they say in the movie.
Randy, what's he talking about? I'm gonna call like the FBI on him or something.
Look, Seth, we've had this conversation before. You're the one that hates Jawas, all right?
I mean, like, oh yeah, I forgot to talk about my favorite part of the Mandalorian season 1 was he just straight up just starts murking these like little Jawas, like literally disintegrating them. It was the coolest thing ever.
I'm gonna start a movement. Hashtag Jawas Lives Matter.
Oh God.
Anyway, then you say stuff like that.
All right, fine. Sorry. All right, sorry, Randy.
I found to be amusing, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. I wonder what way they're gonna take it." And like episode 4, I was like, "Okay, they're gonna." He's got this group of people that are gonna probably come attack him because I believe the 2 Hutts come by and they're like, "Hey," I don't remember if they were cousins of Jabba.
They
I don't
were
remember.
called like the twins, I think, or something like that.
Anyway, they come by and they're like, "Hey, this was Jabba's place, so like,
Yeah, combined we make
So-
one full Jabba.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people are gonna want to take you down for this. I mean, I think you should move over and let us take it back. And he stands his ground, but it's kind of like, oh God, I think people are gonna come here. And then the next 2 episodes, we got a pilot into season 3 of Mando. They just drop all of like, oh, he's preparing for this group of people coming to get him. He needs to kind of win the trust of the other people and the other factions in Tatooine. They're just like, nah, you guys want to see fucking Grogu again? Here he is.
Bro, I wouldn't even call that a
Probably
pilot.
not like he was gone for, like, we were gonna expect him to be gone for like maybe at least the first 3 episodes of season 3. Nah, he gets him back.
Yeah. I was about to say,
Alright.
I wouldn't even call that a pilot for season 3. That was just season. Like, there was a lot of very important things that were happening. That I'm
Those
like,
were the first 2 episodes of season 3.
yeah.
Remember that part where we talked about like cameos actually adding to the story, and then there's a version where the cameos just hijack the story.
Yeah.
They put a gun to Boba Fett's head and it says, "Hey, this is Mandalorian
This is
season
mine.
2.5 now."
This is my story now.
People want to see the child.
We gotta sell this merch somehow.
We gotta sell these. We gotta sell these toys and socks and
unfortunately,
shirts and
we
towels.
can't sell just Tamora Morrison's face. We gotta do something.
We accidentally put an extra 0 under our shirt order.
We're Disney. We didn't do it by accident. We did it on purpose. But yeah, I agree with you. That's obviously what I was alluding to when I started. Was this very Mando takes over this show and just it's it. Now, I have mixed feelings about this, mainly because what is actually shown, like, it's chapter 5 and chapter 6. Right. Yes. It's like, yeah, this is a different show, but it's really cool looking and it's interesting things. I mean, we're seeing, young Grogu training with Luke. We're seeing Mando get a new ship and like, he visits Grogu. He has to like make a decision of like, Mando has to make the decision of like, do I stay in his life or leave? And then it leaves up to Grogu, and then now it's up to him, which is all interesting things, and it's really cool. But like that's kind of the big thing.
Should have just been the first 2 episodes of season 3.
Yeah,
Also,
like there's
fair, like he's introduced like in one of the coolest locations I think I've seen in like a Star Wars anything live action, which is a ring world, which is like this is like way too cool. Like this has no reason being this awesome in Star Wars.
Yeah, that was really cool. I guess I was fine with certain aspects of it. But I'll let you go first, Seth, and then I'll come back to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think my thing is I do agree. I think the first part of like Book of Boba Fett was I kind of watched this a little bit later, and I sort of caught on with like people were saying like, oh, it's not that great. They had a lot of issues. Some people just straight up hated the show. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I'll go with lowered expectations, and I did. But I ultimately came away with liking it, just because like once again it digs a little bit more into the politics of the underworld in Mos Espa on Tatooine, and I actually thought that was like kind of cool that like, hey, just because you're a bounty hunter and you're used to shooting your way through a problem, this is now politics, which is way worse. What was that?
Yeah. Yeah, I like and moving away from, because obviously we just talked about the main issue with Mando showing up, which I do find ironic that there's one character, Boba Fett, who has been around since the second movie ever created, and like, years and years, and his show is taken over by someone who has been around for a couple of years, and a small baby. But other than that big thing, there are a few other, I'm not saying I like completely hate the show or I dislike it, but there are a few issues I do have with it. Mainly like kind of my big one, and I think it might be just like the order of episodes, because when we get to the finale, which by the way, I will say, side note, one of the coolest cameos was Cad Bane, and he's a character from, again, the Clone Wars. That was awesome. But what's kind of a weird thing is, him and Cad Bane are having this argument. It's like, you used to be a hard, amazing criminal. Now you've gone soft. What have these people ever done for you? And I remember watching it, and I'm like, he does have a good point of what have these people done for him. Because
Absolutely nothing.
absolutely nothing, yes. Because he's cool with the Sand People, but guess what? The Sand People were killed by the people he's trying to. Obviously, not the exact same people, but these people at Tatooine like really haven't done much to him. The only ones he's met have been rude or these street kids who he's taken in, and
Like a brigade.
it kind of yeah, the Power Rangers, yes. But it's kind of like a weird thing where why do you care? Like, and I don't know if we got a very good explanation for it. You know, there is one
maybe
episode.
they could have explained that more if
Yeah.
we didn't have Mando season 3 in this season.
Yeah, it just kind of took over. But there's a little bit of explanation in episode 4 when we see a flashback of how he met Finnick, which is a cool episode. But he just kind of, and he's saying that, like, I don't want to be the main bounty hunter anymore. I just wanted something to call my own. Which, like, yeah, that makes sense. But the last time we saw you, chronologically, you were working for Jabba, still doing bounty hunter work. You captured Han, and then you were trying to kill Luke. So how did we get from that to this? It was, and the only thing we got was like he was with the Tuskens for like a couple of weeks, and that changed his whole life. So I think this would have benefited from, yeah, obviously more time with Boba, but also like I feel like we also need more background on just Boba Fett as a character, because this version of Boba Fett from this show is very different from how we saw him in the originals, and he's also very different from, if you've seen the Clone Wars and you've seen young Boba Fett, he's not like this at all. He's still full of anger and rage, and he's met Cad Bane, but they don't have this like history that they're talking about here. So it feels like we're kind of like, and this happens in Star Wars all the time, but like we're kind of jumped in the middle. Well, actually, for Cad Bane, we're jumped at the end of their story. And I think this, I don't know. Well, probably not. It's Star Wars. Nobody dies. So it's kind of, it's weird. I feel like when I watched the show, I was missing a lot of key information. And that was kind of like my takeaway when I finished it was, and this is going to sound really harsh, but almost like unsatisfied. Like there were cool moments, like Mando showed up, that was awesome. The background between why Finnick works with Boba Fett, that's great. I enjoyed that. Danny Trejo showed up randomly. That's Machete, also known as the uncle from Spy Kids. Why he was in there, don't know. He didn't show back up. He was there for one episode, but it was cool seeing him.
Had to give him a Rancor.
Yeah. But
Jabba's Palace really Jabba's Palace without a Rancor?
Fair enough. It was missing that. What is your opinion on Boba Fett? Or do you?
My goodness.
Yeah.
It's a little all over the place. I liked it. I just, I liked what it was going for, but I think I kind of agree where like having Mando kind of come in would have been, I think, better as just like, hey, there's a guy I know, he can help us out, rather than like, as cool as those episodes were, maybe save that for season 3 of Mandalorian instead of trying to have all this stuff happen here, because especially since the timing of like when Mando is introduced is right when the war in Mos Espa really starts to kick into gear between the gangs. And like literally like as soon as that gets introduced, that's when we start. That's whenever Mando starts hijacking the story. So I feel like it would have been smarter to just be like, hey, here's Mando. He's going to help defend Mos Espa. Instead of
just because like, hey, you
taking
helped me
the
get my
story.
armor back. And now, like, or well, he helped Boba Fett get his armor back. And now he's also going to help Boba Fett defend Mos Espa sort of situation.
Yeah.
Just because they're good friends.
They're mates.
Good buddy old pals. Let's do cool Mando things together.
Also, it does feel like that. But yeah, I enjoyed Boba Fett, but there's it definitely feels like the most uneven so far of like the shows that we had seen. Well, mostly Mandalorian season 1 and 2. Also, like Book of Boba Fett, unfortunately, did start to have more of like the weird, I don't know how to put this, meme scenes where it's just like, oh, this is like a little rough. Okay, saying it's just a little rough might be a bit much. I don't know if you guys talked about it yet, but it's like the what is it? The modded out gang with their
The Power
like,
Rangers.
bionic legs.
Yes,
Dude,
the Power
I like
Rangers.
mods. They were fun.
I like the idea of them, but man, after that really awful speeder chase,
Dude, I didn't even care about the speeder chase. I was like, I get it. They got to go slow. Is that or try and like CGI the entire thing? Because like they have to go slow because they're probably at the volume. You know, they're not on like a big set
But they've
or anything like that.
okay, but they've
Or
like
on location.
they've done other. They were doing other speeder bike chases in the same like show, like the scene where
Yeah,
like,
you could. I think you could really tell they're CGI'd, and so it's kind of like one or two things. You
Super
want it to be
slow,
like
yeah.
CGI'd to where it's like, oh, this is you can be like that's CGI'd, or do you want it to just be kind of slow but practical?
but
or we could just not do a chase scene. We could also just do that.
yeah, we could just. Because I don't know that scene, and I remember like it was laughable slow because it must have been either like the episode before or that same episode where there's a scene where he is on speeder bikes with his Tusken dudes riding his bikes like a bantha, and like chasing that train down, and that looks like they're going fast and it's high into and it looks good. It's a little CG'd, but I mean, Star Wars, you kind of get used to that.
Look at the prequels.
Yeah, look at the prequels. But no, what's even more memeable than that is in the finale, and yes, I'm going to bring this up, is when one of the mods is like, they're getting shot out by this big droid, and then he does the most unnecessary spin in all of Star Wars to shoot at it.
It was badass.
It was the stupidest thing I have ever seen. Because it's
Why am I
not
the one
like
who likes the mods.
it's not. I mean, good for you, but like, there's no. It's not like there's a bullet or a laser going over his head because there's a person behind him. It's not like.
Yeah.
It's not like he needs to do that to like build momentum. Like, no, you're shooting a gun. So it was just the most unnecessary. I remember me and my roommate at the time were just dying laughing at the just random spin and just shoot, and it's in slow motion too, so it all has all this momentum to it.
I mean,
Or like just generally the mod. Listen, I like the idea behind the mods, but man, like it's the finale, and like it's also the one time we start to see them like not use gadgets that much. Like you're telling me none of you have like a rocket in your wrist or like a flamethrower in your boot
like
or anything like
teenagers.
that. They had, but they okay during the chasing though. One of them had like a hydraulic like leg that like punched a hole into a speeder, but they never used that again in the
what
finale.
are you gonna do? Run up to the giant droideka and fucking
Also,
kick
they're
it?
That would
Well, yeah, but they're fighting other things than other droidekas.
that would actually be really no. I like Seth's original idea. I like that idea of one of the dudes comes up like, "Don't worry, guys, I got this," and just starts trying to kick the shield, and it just doesn't work. Like he gets slapped away. That would be hilarious.
You can't tell me what they don't have like a rocket in there. Also, you can't tell me they're teenagers. They have guns. They're shooting people.
A teenager can shoot a gun.
Yeah, ask the
Yeah,
military.
but-
Anyway,
We're getting all right. Moving on from that.
But like, but yeah, but I mean, like I feel like I don't know the idea of like I don't know. Maybe it's because I was playing a little bit of Cyberpunk at this time, but the idea of robotically enhanced like characters in the Star Wars universe that have like specific. They're just like, yeah, my boot can kick harder, or just like I don't know. It'd be cool to have a flamethrower hand or like a rocket boot, like or like crap. Give one of them like a EMP grenade stored in their like their buttocks or something.
Weird question, and it might just be because I just don't remember. The main girl, or as I like to call her, the Red Power Ranger. What was her mod? Like, what was her special thing?
I think she had like an eye thing, or was that the
No,
guy?
that was the guy.
That's the spin
Okay.
dude.
Yeah,
That's the
I
guy
don't
that
know.
spins. What was her thing? Now that I'm thinking back on this, and I'm like, Wait, yeah, because Seth's right. There's the yellow Power Ranger with the legs. I'm gonna keep calling him that. One of those dudes.
Was she like Fennec, where she had like a robot tummy?
It might be. Well, I mean, in that case, why Fennec should be the leader of the mods.
She has a red arm. She's
okay,
like C-3PO,
right.
She has a red arm.
Okay, she has a red arm, but does she doesn't use the red
she's
arm.
got a robo
Is
arm.
there,
Like, she doesn't, like-
Is there a gun inside that red arm?
No, she's using a regular
I'm
pistol.
not sure. I'm just looking at still images.
Because I don't
There's
remember
not
her ever
there's not a gun in
using.
there. I don't like it.
I don't remember her ever using that cybernetic. Like, like Seth said, she doesn't pull a flamethrower out or an EMP or just.
That would be cool.
That would
like
be-
I said, like let the cybernetic people do cool cybernetic stuff instead of just spin. Even though it's weird because like also wouldn't the eye thing help you aim better? Like there might be a targeting system or something in there.
Yeah, but no, let's move my head around so it works less. But I don't know. Boba Fett also has a lot of things where like it has a lot of side characters that are joining his like gang, and not everyone gets the amount of screen time that they probably should. There's some like Fennec, which Fennec is a badass, and she's so cool in this. And I'm pretty sure that actress is like 50 years old, but she's doing all these flips and tricks and still like in this action series, and like she's awesome, and she's probably one of my favorite parts of this show. And then there's also Black Chrysanthemum, who is the Wookiee.
He's cool.
Yeah, he was cool. He had things to do. I don't know what that Wookiee is made of, because he at one point gets shot multiple times and then gets shot by the droideka, like takes a tank shell in the chest. Oh, I forgot to mention he was also getting stabbed earlier before that fight, so he's just immortal.
I mean,
but
he's a Wookiee. You know, I don't know what else you want
I
to
guess,
say.
yeah,
they're just built that way.
They're just built different.
They're just built different.
Dude, the Wookiees
We all
didn't
went
need.
for the same joke.
Yeah, the Wookiees didn't even need help. Like when the droids attacked them, man, they were fine, clearly. But I mean, but he's cool.
Black Chrysanthemum was cool. Like straight up ripping arms off dudes, biting people, which apparently is like, at least based on like some Star Wars legend stuff, like Knights of the Republic, that's kind of like a no-no amongst like Wookiee culture, where they want to get away from like a stereotype of like, hey, we're not like, just because we're big and furry and have sharp teeth doesn't mean we're like animals. So they typically try to avoid using like their claws or their teeth in like fighting, because they want to be perceived as like, you know, like they're civilized. They're not like animals like the rest of the world wants them to be. And then here's Black Chrysanthemum. It's like, I don't care about any of that.
Yeah.
I have taser knuckles. I just rip people's like limbs off in like a PG show.
And he just,
you know,
and he just hates lizard people. He just hates Tardoshans.
They were cheating. That's why he got mad.
He killed a man.
Or was he just
No, they were just hanging out at the bar. Yeah. He just freaking
I
ripped
thought they were cheating because, well, you know,
he was gonna kill them either way. He might have just been waiting for an excuse.
He was just he was having a bad day.
He just hates those people. But yeah, those characters are cool and they get a lot of screen time. But yeah, like the mods don't. And arguably, Boba Fett, I don't feel got the character development or like the screen time that probably he should have deserved. And I feel so I don't know. We've talked a lot about this one, and yeah, there's a lot of viewable things, but let's go on to probably the one with like the most recognizable character. This was, or at least for like as far as prequel fans go, the one that just came out and just finished, Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I will say kind of something that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure originally this was supposed to be like a movie. This is going to be a feature-length movie. But it got changed to a show once Solo did not do as critically well, but Mandalorian did. So they kind of switched it up, and they switched up a lot of the story. Well, probably not a lot, but they extended it out. Also, I'm just going to do a little fact checking here, and it seems to, okay, not by much, but it is the shortest of them. Only 6 episodes. Pretty sure Boba Fett and even Mandalorian both have more. Not by much, but It is the
Boba
shortest.
Fett has 7.
Yeah, Boba Fett has 7, and Mando 1 and 2, I believe, have 8.
Yeah,
Yes.
I believe so.
Yes. Okay, so it is the shortest. But it does a lot in this. This is the one where it's the only one of the ones we're talking about that's like, this is Jedi focused. This is about the Force. This is about Order 66. This is the one where it's like, if you liked episode 3, or at least you have to have seen that one to really understand what's going on. The rest of these, like, you could have just started with Mando and been fine and understood it. Like, no, this one, it is for the Star Wars fans. And I do have a lot to say about this one, but I will let you guys start off. I'll start with Seth. How did you feel about Kenobi?
I liked it. I think the most important thing about like Kenobi is this is definitely a show I think made for people who love the prequels, and specifically I think it's for people who love Revenge of the Sith. I think it builds. I think one thing that kind of I really liked about Kenobi is that it is a through and through a thematic sequel to Revenge of the Sith, and I don't mean it as just like, well, duh, it's set between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, but it's also because it's dealing with the consequences of that film. I think one thing we've been seeing more of, like in other spaces other than shows, like with like the games and like some of the animated stuff, is like the consequences that Order 66 had on the greater Star Wars universe at the time. And I think this show really, really digs into like what it did and like how messed up it was. I think personally, I think one of my favorite scenes from this show was the cold open to the first episode, where we're back on Coruscant. You see a Jedi training her pupils, and then they're just suddenly ambushed with by clone troopers. The scene is really well done. It's not entirely one shot, but it feels like it, because it shows the troopers kick in the door, start shooting, she dispatches them, then they run into the hallway, and then the rest of it from there is one shot. And that whole sequence like communicates just, I think, the chaos of that event so well. Like and you just see a teacher that is like desperately trying to like protect her students, and she is like, what's cool is like, even though she's a Jedi, she's still getting shot and still going through.
Yeah.
Like the last killing shot, she does manage to like take down the clone trooper that got her before she succumbs. And I think it really sets the tone for this show, where it's definitely like a bit darker. It deals with like more themes around like guilt, like dwelling on like the past. And I think that's what makes Kenobi works. It's really good at like building up the title character and dealing with the consequences of Revenge of the Sith. That being said, though, personally, I would say like some of my gripes is I really don't think the show really did it for me. I liked it, but I don't think it really, really started to do it to me. Do it to me. That's weird. Really start to work for me until around, I would say later parts of episode 3 is pretty good. Like around like episode 3 and then 5 and 6. I think those were the episodes that really made me be like, all right, this show is great, especially like the last part. Edwin McGregor does like I think honestly, like despite how I might feel about the show overall, I won't deny that Edwin McGregor probably gives the best acted Star Wars sequence in like Star Wars related, in my opinion.
Yeah.
His like that like final sequence with him and with Vader is not only like tense, but it is like legitimately heart-wrenching stuff, and I loved it. So
I do want to talk about that, and Randy, I'll let you say your piece, but I do want to get this out of the way that they portray Darth Vader in this. In my opinion, is like perfect. I love it because in a lot of media that has come out later, and I'm talking about like Jedi Fallen Order and even Star Wars Rebels, and this included, is when Vader shows up, he is
And
just...
Rogue One, but I'm sorry, I had to throw that in there too.
Oh yeah, and Rogue One. But like when Vader shows up, he is the most menacing thing in the entire world, and he's big and he's intimidating, and it's very much like it shows that like this is probably the most powerful like dark side user in existence, because there's so many times where he just walks over people and just doesn't care and is just unfeeling. There's at one point he uses the Force to snap someone's neck and then just doesn't even look to the side of them. There's another fight scene where he's, again, spoilers, he's fighting one of the Inquisitors that betray him, and he doesn't even pull his lightsaber out. He's just using the Force to block it, and then he takes her lightsaber. And there's so many, like, they build him up so well, and when Obi-Wan first sees him, he just runs, and he's just terrified because he's not connected with the Force right now, and he can't stand up to him. And then there's that other scene where he just sets a fire and picks up Obi-Wan and just drags him through it. And it's just such a good, like, this is what it feels like type moment. And I love
also want to add, not just any person that he snaps the neck of. It's a kid coming to check on his dad.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That is a child. He's so... God, yeah, Star Wars, a kid's show. But he's done so well in this. And he's like what makes this show for me. But I'll get into my things more because I'll let Randy talk about. Randy, how did you feel about the show, or Vader, or anything?
I really enjoyed the show, just because they got people to come back. You know, you have Ewan McGregor doing a fantastic job as Obi-Wan. And he's just, I feel like he does great in everything I've seen him in. To be fair, that's been mostly limited, actually. I realize it now. I pretty much saw him in Star Wars and Birds of Prey. So,
yeah. Not a Trade Spotting fan, are you?
I mean, I just haven't seen it.
He's also
good at that. I do recommend that. For the horror fans out there, if you like The Shining, watch Doctor Sleep. He's really good in that. Anyway, Randy, how did you feel about Kenobi?
Anyway,
sorry.
Kenobi, I really enjoyed. I personally thought it was paced pretty well. I didn't feel like there was a filler episode in here, probably because it was written as a movie first, and then I have no idea if this is how it actually happened or anything like that, but they got to then just pretty much flush out side characters, because I feel like if this ended up being a movie, Reva probably would have been cut down a lot more in what she does and her character, and that like she would have then not have been a satisfying character. To where I think she does an amazing job. Moses Ingram, I believe, is the actress's name, and she's fantastic. Yeah. I loved the end. Where she is just like crying and just weeping and is just like, have I become him?
Yeah.
At the end to Obi-Wan, and just sobbing about like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do anything to like hurt Vader. I tried to take him on one-on-one, couldn't do it. I tried to take out this kid that I just knew was important in some way to him, and I couldn't even do that. We'll talk about that later. Anyway, but I thought she acted it really well. And just going through the episodes, looking at them, I thought that they were all paced pretty well. Episode 1, we get just kind of seeing where Kenobi's at now. How is he just making his way through his existence now? Basically now. He's not...
Barely is the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I would not say he's living. He's just existing. Yeah. He's just there, trying to get through. And then I was a little nervous, like, how are they going to get Obi-Wan off planet? Because we had these rumors saying, and like, even in the trailers, you see like, oh, he's off planet. You know, what's going to be able to do that?
We're going to see more Tatooine. It's so important. We need to see more of that.
Tatooine is the most important place in the galaxy, and why people don't know that.
Yeah, I don't know either. Anyway,
Why does everyone want to keep going to Tatooine?
that bring in young Leia. I was like, that's the perfect reason.
Yeah.
This is great.
So
So it is just a quest to bring her back, or at least that's the main goal. But we also see Obi-Wan deal with his guilt and confronting that guilt, and overall kind of the same with Reva, except with her like twisted version of justice. But she also feels kind of guilty that, even though she was just a youngling and whatnot, all of her friends died around her. And she's like, I couldn't do anything.
yeah.
But I mean, she was a youngling. What was she going to do?
So I will say that I'll admit that when this started out, I was not the biggest fan of Reva. I mean, I'm not like those some people on Twitter who like bashed her personally, which don't do that, by the way, because A, you don't know how the character is going to turn out, and B, that's a person, not a character. Like, this should be obvious,
I feel
but
like at this point we need to just put it. Hey, stop harassing the non-white actors in Star Wars. It's getting really annoying.
yeah.
Let's be real. That's where a lot of this started to happen. So
But
because we had it with Finn, we had it with Rose, and then we had it with Moses Ingram. It's just like, there seems to be a pattern here amongst the neckbeards. Well, yeah, the neckbeards.
the quote-unquote Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
I'm a real fan.
But
shut up. You're not a real fan. Shut up.
yeah. But I will say
God,
that
so
like,
disgusting.
even though I wasn't the biggest fan of her at the start, because I watched and I was like, okay, she's just like, not even like total evil like Vader, but she's just like not even thinking evil. Like she's just doing terrible things because that's what it felt like the script was.
Because be evil.
Yes, because be evil. But as the series went on, I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. She was playing a part, not just the physical actors, but like, yeah, she's doing this to get close to Vader, and she's also doing this just because like she doesn't know what else to go, and she thinks that this will lead him closer. So that's why she's just not even to compared to the other Inquisitors, just unapologetically like, I'm just gonna hurt people. I'm just gonna be the most generic bad guy ever, because she is playing a part. So as the show went on, I was like, okay, I like this character more. It did take an episode, but again, that's why don't judge a character until the series is actually over, because she did grow on me, and now I do appreciate her. The other thing that Randy brought up that I do agree with was young Leia, and I think that the girl that actually plays her, I think, does a great job. You see a lot of Carrie Fisher in that kid and her mannerisms, and you kind of see like, okay, yeah, I could see this kid growing up to be the leader of a revolution. And I think her and Obi-Wan's dynamic is really good. It does kind of fall in that same thing again, where it's a father who's unwilling has to take care of a child now. It's a lot, again, a Dave Filoniism, but like Randy said, they do it well, and it's really well done here. Their dynamic is great.
The Last of Us ruined storytelling for us. I'm sorry, Drew.
Yeah, because The Last of Us did it, so God of War had to do it, so Mandalorian had to do it, now everything's doing it.
If you really want to go back, it really started with the book The Road, which is about a father protecting his son in a post-apocalyptic world. So that book is, so you can blame Cormac McCarthy for all this. It's his dang fault.
Everything. But like I said, it's done well here. And again, I keep agreeing with Randy. This is probably the best paced out of all this. Probably because it was originally a movie and it is an episode shorter. But yeah, nothing feels like filler. Everything has a purpose. I really like Ewan McGregor's like character development. You can even, and this is not the first time they've done this in Star Wars. This is actually a theme in all of Star Wars. If you look at his clothing, it matches kind of his level with the Force or just like his level emotionally. Because when you start, he's dirty, grimy, and gray. He's just like, I don't even like the Force. I'm just gonna use a gun.
Probably doesn't even brush his teeth.
Probably not.
How uncivilized.
Where is there is no sink in that little cave. He is very uncivilized. But as you go forward,
He's like a toothbrush. Did you see some Listerine in that cave?
Nope. No, he smells terrible. But as you go forward, he gets cleaner. His clothes start going from brown to gray. They start getting cleaner. His hair starts getting slicked back. He starts looking like how he did in the originals. And that shows that he's growing more. He's getting back to his mojo. He's getting back in connection with the Force. And I like that you can visually see that character progression. And again, this is not the first time that's done this. This was happening actually way back originally with Luke Skywalker. He's and Return of the Jedi. He's in all black, but towards the end when he decides to like save his dad, you can see a piece of white fabric in the middle of his chest. So like, no, they're still good there. Anakin Skywalker did. His clothes went from brown to just pure black robes because he went bad. Rey does this in the sequels. Despite your opinions on it, it does it as well, where she goes from gray to a darker gray in the next one to, in the last one, she's much lighter clothing. So it's a theme in Star Wars, and I'm happy to like see that continue of like characters not only emotionally change but visually change. And yeah, I was super into the show. Anyone that knows me knows that this is my favorite character in all of Star Wars. So it's no surprise that this is the show I'm really attached to. And yeah, this was the one I've been looking forward to for a while, and like I'm happy to say that it delivered in mine. I know Seth said like there was something missing that didn't really connect with him. The exact opposite happened for me. I was very connected with Obi-Wan. I really liked the girl that played Leia. Vader is probably the best villain of all the TV shows, which, yeah, it's probably unfair. That's Darth Vader. Of course he's going to be the best villain. But this show does a lot for me, and I'm really glad that we finally got to see it after it was a movie, and then it got delayed, and then all these things happened. And I was really nervous because usually delays and reshoots spell bad things, but it seemed to have turned out well for this show.
I will say there were parts of episode 6 that I wish the order of things. I liked all the content. I wish some of the order of things were a little different, and I understand why they did what they did, because Star Wars loves having two planes of action at the same time. They've done it in like every mainline movie to where episode 6 I believe had 3 going on, because you had the space battle, you had Vader and Luke fighting, and then you also had the stuff happening on Endor. But they like having multiple planes of action happening all at the same time. But I personally would have enjoyed if they stayed more linear in this case and had Obi-Wan and Vader fight, and then have Reva get to the
Luke.
Get to Owen and Beru's farm later, and then once she arrives there, that's like Obi-Wan finished his fight, and he's starting his engine up, and he's like, oh gosh, Luke is in trouble. I can tell that like Reva is on that property. Then he jumps to light speed, and starts going there. But then you can then just have her, going through fighting Owen and Beru, which was awesome. I like that Beru was just like, you chased off Obi-Wan, Owen, you freaking dumbass.
I do love that.
Now get the guns and we're gonna fight.
I do love that. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of my favorite parts of that finale. My favorite part is obviously the rematch of Darth Vader and Obi-Wan. But that's such a great moment of like Owen just like, oh gosh, what are we gonna do? And she's like, what we're gonna do is we're gonna defend our property. And she just pulls out like 2 guns out of nowhere. And they're like, now grow a pair and let's shoot a Jedi or an Inquisitor. And she's just
pretty
like,
much.
But as cool as that is, that fight should have been over. Like in a way, I kind of see Randy's point, because instead of making it seem like it's happening at the same time, I feel like it had to have happened much later.
Yeah.
Because the fight between Vader and Obi-Wan must have been like, what? Maybe, I would probably say in time, like around 20 or so minutes. That fight should have been way shorter with like Reva and the farmers. Like, they're moisture farmers with blasters. She was, even though it wasn't that well animated, she was deflecting blaster shots from like a snow speeder. All right, she should be able to just floor these people.
I will
even
argue.
if she is a little wounded.
I will argue the
got
other
stabbed.
way around, because what that fight should have ended. It should have ended in 2 seconds. If Owen didn't shoot too early and miss, if Aunt Beru took the shot, then she'd be dead, and then we wouldn't be having a finale. That's my argument. But yeah, it should have been quicker, but the other way around.
But yeah, I think it should have been more linear there, because I feel like whatever system that Vader and Obi-Wan fought on had to be super close, considering he got there that fast. Because generally, like, even though it is light speed and stuff like that, it still takes time.
Yeah. Well, because the way that
Yeah, it was insanely fast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
like, I
kinda
know
wonder,
Star
like,
Wars
what's the
loves
travel time?
Yeah. Well, here's the little Star
loves their
Wars.
two lanes,
Here's a little
just-
Star Wars lore for you guys. The way lightspeed works isn't actually really about speed, because it's more like you're just traveling in between places. So yeah, those planets probably are just close to each other, in the sense of like a galaxy
but
away.
Yeah.
But I
That's
see
the
what you
only
mean.
thing I had an issue with.
It does.
Like, I was on board for everything else, but just
It does
while
kind of.
that was happening,
Yeah.
as much as I liked Reva and I loved how it ended and how well it was acted at the end, every time when it cut away from the Vader fight, back to that, I just went, I don't care.
Yeah. Well, because that
Because we know
Vader.
nothing's going to happen to Luke.
Yeah. I mean, to
but
be
it's
fair.
and nothing's going to happen to Owen and
Yeah.
Beru. That comes later when they get toasted.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I'm sorry, I don't care. If this happened later, I would care.
Yeah. Well, that's also an
But
interesting.
you kept cutting away from something that was emotional and I was invested in, more so than her chasing Luke.
Yeah. Well, that's something that interesting that you did bring up, and I forgot to ask is more so than like the other two, because like the other two, it's like, okay, we don't know where this Mando character is gonna end up because we've never met him before. We don't really know where Boba Fett's gonna lead because it was said that he was dead before this, so we don't know about these characters. This is the one series where every single character that we see, other than like brand new ones, we know exactly where they're gonna end up. We're never going to end up in the next like couple of years because there's an entire movie about them. So I guess what did you get? Because in my opinion, despite that fact, I mean, like I said, other than the brand new characters, despite knowing where everyone's supposed to end up, I'm still invested, like in this show and in this story, and especially in that final fight. Which, yeah, I agree. I do kind of wish it was just like. We stay on this, but yeah, that's an issue of all of Star Wars. Is ever since the favorite of my movies, Empire Strikes Back, there always has to be multiple final scenes happening at the same time, and that does issue. But despite that, I'm still invested into this fight scene of like I know who has to win this fight, and I know exactly that where these are going to end up, but I'm still invested. I'm still like, oh my gosh, I can't. The thing's happening in front of my screen. He lifted amongst the rocks and as Randy pointed out earlier, I went woo woo. And
I pointed and I clapped.
Oh no, actually no, that happened later at the very end of the show where he's finally introduced to Luke and he goes, hello there. And then all Star Wars fans went, I pointed and I clapped, and then we all clapped.
Yep.
So
He said the thing.
he said the thing. But it was cool when he said the thing. All right. Do you guys have any final thoughts about Kenobi, or just about? Yeah, we'll stay with Kenobi. You guys have any final thoughts about that?
I have just two quick notes.
Hmm.
Tala, I thought she was really cool, and I liked what she brought to the table and how she kind of tells Obi-Wan like, hey, like it's part of the past, and we've all made mistakes.
Yeah.
And she talks about how she kind of inadvertently uh, led to a bunch of I don't remember if it was children or families
I think it's just
or
like,
just civilians, but a lot of people died,
yeah.
pretty much.
But that's a good
And
point.
she was like, "Ooh, I don't think this is what I want to be a part of."
Yeah.
So there's that, and then I really liked having a nonverbal character that still conveyed emotion. That droid, how at the end, just to buy Tala more time to get out that thermal detonator in episode. What was that?
That would
5?
be
Yep, episode 5.
5. Yeah.
Um, having that verbal, just like I care for you, and like we kind of both had each other's back
Yeah.
as we kind of ran this path situation, which the path is really cool. But I know we didn't touch on that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
There's a lot.
that's what I had.
Yeah. I
I
agree.
just wanted to shout out like Tala and
Yeah.
Ned B, I believe was the droid.
Something like that. I don't know. But I
Anyway.
agree with you. There's a lot of like, because she's good. And then also, what is his? I can't remember his character's name, but the Jedi impersonator, the fake one.
Raja,
Yes.
if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think so. I can't. What is it? I'm terrified I'm gonna mispronounce that. Anyway, he's really good because it also shows that like, yeah, there are sympathizers, but still trying to make a profit.
Haja, not Raja. Haja.
Yes,
My bad. Continue.
Yeah, thank you. No, but thank you for checking that up. So I found him really interesting, and I like that he was included. Because him and I agree. I think Talia. These are probably characters that, like, if this were to be a movie, they probably wouldn't have been included or would have had smaller roles. But the fact that this is a show and it gets to be longer, it gets to have more characters. And yeah, I enjoyed their story. It kind of gets overshadowed because obviously we want to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Vader and their relationship. But that isn't all the show is. It does have good elements outside of that. All right, well, I think that's everything we have to say about Kenobi. And now let's go on to actually ranking them. And we'll start from bottom and go up. So out of like our four shows, Boba Fett, Mandalorian season 1, season 2, and Kenobi. We'll start with Seth. Seth, what was out of all these like your just least favorite?
I probably put at the bottom Book of Boba Fett, and it's
Yeah.
not that I hate it. It's just kind of, it had issues for sure.
Yeah. I think I'd also like agree with you. And I kind of only assume that like it's kind of universal that this was, not to say like that it was terrible, but like yeah, out of what's come out so far, it's probably towards the bottom. It just had a lot of issues with pacing, and it didn't do the Mandalorian thing correctly where you can have cameos, but they kind of took over the story. And Randy, would you agree with that?
I agree, and it's also that they had major things happen in the Mandalorian plotline happen in this show.
Yeah.
To where if people didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, they're going to see the end of season 2 and be like, oh man, Grogu and Mando got separated. I wonder what season 3 is going to be like. And then they're just back together in a Nububian starship.
Yep. Yeah, you said a funny word. Anyway. So I guess, Randy, then, if that's your last, what comes just right above that?
I guess Mando season 1.
Okay.
Is what comes next for me after Book of Boba Fett.
Why is that?
I think it was a good start. And I'll agree that season 2 built on season 1 quite a bit. Season 1 was definitely like a building season. It had important aspects of it where, if I remember correctly, in season 1, we get where they break into, is
The
that
prison?
season 1?
Yes, they break into the prison in season 1.
No, not the prison.
Oh.
Oh, it is season 2. Never mind.
Okay.
Never mind. That comes into season 2. So that's also why I'm not as interested in season 1. But yeah, season 1 was just it was a building season.
Yeah.
While it did have good aspects of it, and it was all new stuff, which I think also gives it credit. I really like seeing new stuff in Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, I think I probably agree with you on that. Well, season 1, I think, did well. It was like, this is our first step. So it didn't do anything super fantastical or amazing, and it was a lot of like filler stuff. So I'd also probably put it third place. Seth, what are your thoughts? Who do you think deserves the bronze medal?
I think like Mando season 1 is like a safe bet. It's good. It's just, it's the thing where it suffers from the plot line is not that great just because it's sort of weakened by the side quests in the story. And I think that's what really brings it down. It has a really cool start and ending, but the middle kind of leaves you wanting.
Yeah. Well, probably our second place is where I think we'll start to differ. And I'll just go ahead and ask you, Seth, who do you believe is silver?
I think it's Kenobi. I like Kenobi. I like what it tries to do. But I feel like even though I did like the final couple of episodes quite a bit, it still wasn't enough to justify some of the slower, in my opinion, some of the more slower, at times even boring bits of pacing in like earlier episodes.
I very much disagree. At no point when I was watching this did I actually ever feel bored. I didn't ever feel that it was going too slow, because I feel it is a bit more of a personal story, and in those slow moments it is just characters talking and developing. So I mean, yeah, so that's kind of mainly why I think second place is Mando season 2. Not even because like it's necessarily bad or I have a major issue with it. It's just I just connected with Kenobi a lot better. Mandalorian season 2 still has a lot of really good things. Mainly the Jedi, which is one of the episodes in there. Its finale and its inclusion into like the more like bigger Star Wars world, where I think it brings cameos in and does it well. But Kenobi just has so many other things that I really enjoy about it. It's Vader's brought back and he's done really well. Some of the new characters I really enjoyed learning them, and then obviously Ewan McGregor does a really good job. So yeah, it's not even like anything Mandalorian season 2 does bad. It's just Kenobi just sets it above for me. So, but Randy, what are your thoughts? What do you think deserves second?
I'm gonna agree with you. I almost put Mando above Kenobi, but I think part of that is dampened because of what happens in Boba Fett, having basically the end of season 2 not matter. Basically, it's just the kid went off with Luke, and then I mean we don't know how much time has necessarily passed, but because I feel it wasn't too long, he just shows up again, and I was fine with in Boba Fett. I was fine with Mando trying to visit Grogu and being like, I want to give him this gift, and then Ahsoka being like, well, you can't visit him right now, and he kind of like sees the temple starting to get built, and you see that he cares, but then he has to leave. I was fine with that part of it.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that they just go, it doesn't matter.
He's back.
End of season 2 doesn't matter. People want the kid. So that's why I'm putting it lower, but I almost put it above Kenobi. Parts of it because Mandalorian is gonna do its part to try and fix parts of
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker, which I think is important. I know in Episode 4, they kind of go in there and you see like they're cloning or trying to. You see they don't say cloning, but you see these things in pods, and there's something about they need to up their M count, their metachlorian count and whatnot. So that's kind of why they were after Grogu. And okay, this will be interesting, and I'm interested to see where this goes. But like I said, I had to put it second just because they undid a bunch of stuff, in my opinion. So then Kenobi gets number 1 because a lot of the same reasons that you put. I thought Ian McGregor did a great job. Hayden Christensen did a great job as Vader in Episode 6 with the broken mask. They also both did a really good job in that flashback, despite both not looking quite how they did in Episode 2, but that's okay.
Yeah.
The theme that they were going for and the storytelling they did there, I thought was good. And I really liked a lot of the side characters. I loved Reva. I loved Tala. And I just overall really enjoyed the series. Even though, yes, we know where they end up and stuff like that. Just because you know where the story ends doesn't mean along the way you can't tell something meaningful.
Yeah.
So
That also was a good point you brought up earlier is, and I don't know if this is exactly what you meant, but something that I kind of thought of, yes, while I enjoy Kenobi more, I don't think I want an Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2, but I definitely want Mandalorian Season 3. Because I think this is, Obi-Wan, it's like, here's the beginning, here's the middle, and here's the end. And like, at least for his journey, obviously we know where Kenobi ends, but like, I wouldn't want him to like, go on another adventure with Leia. Like, no, I feel like that would be a bit repetitive. I don't know. Maybe they could do something interesting, but I'm okay if this is the last like Kenobi show. But I definitely do want Mandalorian to continue. Seth, you kind of explained why Kenobi got second, but so why? Because your opinion is different from the both of ours. So why? And you did talk about this a little bit, but like, let you defend yourself again. Why is Mandalorian 1?
I think Mandalorian Season 2 is just a better put together show. And that's really what it comes down to is I think Mandalorian Season 2 was able to stay interesting and fun and compelling throughout, whereas like with Kenobi, it was a little bit more inconsistent for me personally. I understood what they were going for, but I'm not sure enough for me personally was like hitting like it like for example the dynamic between like Kenobi and Leia, younger Leia, didn't really start to all connect with me until around Episode 3. And like I want to praise like once again like McGregor's acting. I think it's fantastic. One of my favorite scenes, and it's a smaller moment, but it kind of really shows you that this is not the same Kenobi that was in like the prequel trilogy. This is one that's definitely been like sort of battered. Is the one where they're just talking like about meeting up with this person on this planet. He's talking to Leia, and Leia's like, maybe someone will come, and he's like, he gets a little frantic. He said like, don't you get it? Like, no one's coming. Like, no one's coming to like help us. And you start to realize like this Kenobi is not like as calm and collected and as like even kind of suave as like the one in like the Clone Wars. This is one that's like more paranoid and has been burned before, and it's like it's really cool. Like I like that, and just there's just these little things about McGregor's acting. Like whenever he's talking with like Leia about that planet, he says it's like there used to be trees here, there used to be families, and then like the Empire came, and then like you get the sense that he feels like that part of this is like his own failure, that like I wasn't able to secure a future for this galaxy, like a peaceful future, and it's partially his fault. And like those are like really good moments, and those are what I look to. But then I look to other things like, did I really care for the Leia chase scene in like the first episode. I don't really remember too much of like what happened in the second episode. It's just there were times where it felt like the show was sort of like treading water and not much was happening. There's also like little things where I was just a little disappointed by, like episode 4 with the whenever they go to the Inquisitor place. I don't know if you guys are touched on it. I'm sorry if you guys did, but this place has already been broken into 5 years previously by Cal.
Cal Kestis.
And they have not upped their security like at all. Just a random officer shows up and is just kind of like, yeah, I'm here.
If anything, like, ironically, the security probably downgraded because that final level is kind of hard as Cal. It is. But
also, where were the Purge Troopers? Like, I do think the black stormtrooper. Oh God, sorry, the black armored like stormtroopers with like red trimmings on their shoulders are supposed to be a version of like the Purge Troopers, but
they are.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm a little disappointed. I think it might have been asking for too much in episode 4, but wouldn't it have been too much to have one of them like kind of pull like a traitor, well, like whatever, and then like they pull out like one of those like purple weapons that they had in Jedi Fallen Order. That would have been kind of sick, in my opinion.
That would have been pretty sick.
Like it's like in the torture room, instead of just having it 2 basic stormtroopers that, admittedly, cool seeing how Kenobi dispatches them. But what if it was just 2? What if those 2 troopers were the Purge troopers and Kenobi fought them? Like, and that's honestly, that's just more just my stupid Star Wars brain. That's really nothing against the show. I don't think points deserves to be docked for that.
Yeah.
I just think that would have been a nice attention to detail.
It would have been cool. Also, I do want to point out that while you're criticizing the Leia chase scene of 2 people chasing a small child, you were earlier defending the speeder bike chase scene, which I would argue moves at the same pace.
No, I was defending the speeder bike chase scene.
Fair. Okay.
The speeder chase scene, the only reason I like it is because of how funny it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's really stupid.
I mean, I agree that it's funny, and like, and that's also one of the reasons I like the mods and stuff, is like Star Wars has just random camp and like obligatory like weird Star Wars things in it that I enjoy.
I don't think the Leia chasing was not. I don't think the Leia chasing was supposed to be like that.
No, not the Leia chase scene. The mods.
Yeah.
The
Also,
Leia chase scene, I was just like, it's a small child.
I mean, also like that lasted.
Like, she can kind of get away.
That lasted like maybe 5 minutes at most. Like it was not a long thing. It's not the mod thing was like that was the big finale of that episode. Like,
yeah, it's not. It's just it feels like it's like. Honestly, I could have just even 5 minutes is too long. I think it should have been just a quick 20-second thing where it's just like Leia walks out, they just grab her and run. Like that's honestly, I think that's all you needed.
I mean, I don't know. Also, I don't remember that scene being that long. But I've seen a bunch, not just you, but a bunch of other people was like, "Oh, why'd they add that?" I was like, is that really what is bothering people?
I don't think it was 5 minutes. I think it was more
Definitely
like a minute.
5. It was like maybe a minute 30.
I was about to say, I think I overestimated it, but like it was really short.
It's like a minute. It's like just a minute. It's just the thing is like when you're watching TV or anything, and if you're not vibing with it, it can feel like a long time for certain people. I think that's what it is. Is like it feels longer for some people. It didn't really feel that long, but I do agree that scene was kind of weird, especially since they're trying to set this up as a little bit more serious.
I don't know. It didn't bother me personally, but
also I'm more surprised oh God forgive me. I can't remember the name of the actor, the one that's in Eternals and probably the best character in Eternals besides Gilgamesh. The
character
Jedi dude.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he got to live. I'm honestly surprised.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I enjoyed that.
I thought they were going to kill him off. I liked him. I just thought that they were definitely going to kill him off.
Yeah. I enjoy his inclusion. He actually did he had a couple funny moments, especially with Ewan McGregor. But yeah. I think...
it's played by Camille. Najjiani.
Yeah.
I think I
Yeah,
pronounced that right.
that's the dude. By the way, if you ever like look up pictures of him shirtless, he's like shredded now. Like it's insane.
Just a second.
Randy's like, I am on the research on that one.
Considering he used to be more
For
like a
research
comical-
purposes.
he was more like a comedian and like a comical actor.
I don't think he was ever like out of shape though.
No, he was out of shape. He was just kind of skinny, you know. But now he's just he's bulked up. He's
Yeah.
big.
He got that Marvel treatment, dude. They take
Concur.
Marvel will take anyone and make him buff. Look what they did to Chris Pratt.
That's what they did to Natalie Portman. Did you see like some of the memes and stuff where they were calling her like, you know, she played Padme. They call her now Chad May.
Yeah.
Is that how shredded she is now?
I've seen.
I'm gonna be honest. I've only seen the initial trailer because I'm like, I'm gonna go watch it. Whatever.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I don't want to spoil myself on this movie. I think I did that to Doctor Strange, so I'm staying away from trailers.
It looks.
That's
I'm
what
excited.
I do for every movie that I'm like, I know I'm just gonna go watch it.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'll watch the initial trailer and then nothing else.
All right. Well, we're starting to get a little bit of off topic, but I do enjoy the Chad May. So, but yeah, that's our rankings. We agree mostly on the order, except Seth, but that's because he's obviously wrong. Anyway, I'm joking.
I just like to be difficult, as
Yeah.
we can see with this podcast. I just really love just chaos.
Of course. Just listen to your audio. Anyway, so now we go on to what we do at the end of every episode, which is our fresh picks of the week. But we're going to do a little bit different where, and I don't know if you guys, I don't think you guys said you had these, but for future, if we wanted to, we could also have a fresh pick and or a rotten pick of the week if there's something that we just despised. And I'll go first because I kind of started this because I do have a rotten pick of the week. And Seth was with me when I was ranting about this, but and I've talked about this previously, but it's Marvel's Avengers. I'm here talking about this game again. Why can't this game just be good? Like, come on. I really tried. I tried everything. I played all the DLC. I tried the different characters, but it's just not good. I really wanted to. I enjoyed, and I still stand by this. I enjoyed the main story for like the first half when you didn't have all the characters, where there weren't 50 million people and the frame rate died every time, and there's all these complicated systems and there's all these looting, and it just doesn't. It's not fun to play. Like it's
not doing it for you.
It's not, no, and it felt like a chore getting through. And I found that like my issue doesn't even really stem from like, I know some people have like, well, I don't like the art style, I don't like the frame rate, it doesn't run well. Or the grinding or the extra modes. I don't mind that. What matters to me is like that text notification everyone heard. But what really bothers me is like it just doesn't feel very like put together, and it doesn't feel like they really thought this through. And I can point out a specific example of this, and this is mainly with the Black Panther DLC, because you start that game off and you get Black Panther, and they're showing you all his abilities. And the first thing one of the first things they show you is his unique abilities. He can get armor, and then if he takes hit, he builds up this meter, and then you can spend that meter on attacks. I'm like, okay, that's a cool system. It's a unique thing. It's different from the other people. Let's try it out. Like, first enemy I ever fought, and they literally tell you, like, hold this button to use your armor. The very first enemy, his first attack, he throws out a counter to the armor move, and it breaks it. Before you even get a chance to ever use it, to do it, and now you just feel like an idiot. Because you didn't know. Because the game doesn't tell you that the enemy's going to do that. And the worst part is, that's not like a special enemy you fight. That's a common enemy. And in this game, for those of you who've not played, you fight like 1 million people at one point, and they're all swarming you, and 50 attacks are coming. So the fact that any random enemy can just do that and just break your armor is really not satisfying, and just really takes away. And yeah, I really wanted this game to be good. And maybe they will fix it, because they did recently announce that they will be doing one more DLC for it, which was female Thor, which, like, hey, maybe I'm wrong.
Jane Foster, yeah.
Yeah, Jane Foster, which, like, I want to be wrong about this. I want this game to have a complete turnaround, and it's great, and it's the best thing ever, and it's better than Elden Ring, and it's all these things. But
Keep open.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's not, and it really is frustrating, and it's really hard to play. Maybe I'll play the Jane Foster thing, but right now I just don't want to.
Yeah, there's not a lot of hope for this game. I feel like, and it sucks to say, but like one of the biggest indicators I realized is whenever they finally added Spider-Man in as playable on the PlayStation versions of this game,
Yeah.
and I don't think I heard really anybody talk about it, which is weird. Like, it's Spider-Man. Everyone loves Spider-Man in a video game, and then just no one talks about it.
So, funny thing about that is, around that same time that the Spider-Man DLC came out, the game Fortnite, which you can make fun of that game all you want, but that has god tier level costumes and extra characters. Like, it has Star Wars, Marvel, it has video games, movies, it has everyone. Like, they just put Indiana Jones in that game.
They don't have everyone. They don't have Morbius.
Not yet. They'll
Not
get him
yet.
eventually. I promise you that. They got Venom. But they also add a Spider-Man DLC where you can find a weapon and it's a grappling hook. It's Spider-Man's web shooters. And that game has better web slinging. Fortnite, this, shooter about building that, like, is made for, like, 13 or 14-year-olds. All these are, but has better web slinging than the game based on just Marvel characters. And this DLC
It's free.
Yeah, and it's free. So it's like, so that's why you didn't hear anyone talking about it, because, like, well, if I want to play Spider-Man, you're going to play Spider-Man PS4, but if I don't even want to pay for that, I'll just play Fortnite, find this item, and you're playing a better version of Spider-Man. So
There's just to further prove your point, I think there's also like custom like game modes and stuff. So I think people could actually, like, if they want to just make a web slinging mode for them and their friends to play, they can actually make that in Fortnite, I believe. Which is like you said, that's just a better Spider-Man game.
It just doesn't. This game's got I can hark on about this all day, but it's so disappointing, and I really want this because I just want a good Marvel game, and I got that eventually. But it's Guardians of the Galaxy, but I just want it with Iron Man. But I've harked on this game long enough. This is like the third time I've ranted about this on a podcast.
Man, you should play the Wii version of the Iron Man video games then if you want a really good Iron
Seth,
Man
you know what the
game.
best part is? You think I haven't? I own that. I definitely have played that. And you know what? I've almost beat it because I just want a good Iron Man game. And unfortunately, the best I'll get is the Lego games, which are fun. But that's my thing. I'm going to stop ranting about it. Actually, I'll probably rant about it again when the Jane Foster DLC comes out. But that's fine. Seth, what is your fresh or rotten pick this week?
So are we just doing one at a time, or are we doing two? I'm sorry.
You can. So yeah, I'll say this. You can either have one, or you can have a fresh and a rotten, or just a rotten. So just if all you want to talk about is the good one, then do that. Or if all you want to talk about is the bad one. I
got a couple of fresh ones. So I don't know if we ever talked about this on this podcast ever, but I'm a weeb. Granted, the past couple of years, I haven't really watched much anime. But recently I've been going back into it. And so I've gotten into a couple of different shows that I really liked. One of them that's, I think, gained quite a bit of traction is Spy Family. And
Oh
I
my
think
gosh.
It's like, yeah, if you've heard of it, there's a reason you've heard of it.
That is, I don't like too many, like, it's a slice of life anime where it's not action heavy. It's very much more like day by day and just kind of whatever. But that show I've fallen in love with, and I've described that as like my dose of like serotonin every week. Because that show, it just makes you happy. But I'll let you talk about
It's
it.
interesting. no, like Spy Family. The premises of it is it's a spy family. Basically, it is these three people. It's a woman, a man, and a young girl. Who have all kind of agreed to be a sort of like fake family for different reasons. But what they're not aware of is each one of them has a very specific role. For example, the quote unquote father of the family is actually a spy who was on a mission. And part of that mission was to basically build up a fake family to have a cover for himself. His wife in this case is a assassin for the government. And she straight up kills people. There's really no way around this. She just kills people. And their daughter, which none of them are aware of, is a telepath. So she's the only one that is aware of what is actually going on. The father and the mother are unaware of each other's role. Neither knows that one is a spy and the other is an assassin. And it leads to it is a very wholesome show about these people, which even though it's like a pretend family, they really do legitimately bond with each other. And you just get it's a really good cozy feeling of it's heartwarming, wholesome stuff, it's all great things. But at the same time, Drew, you could also probably test this. At the same time, the show will sometimes just cut to things where it's and this is what Yor or Lloyd is doing, which is killing people, just straight up murdering people. And it's
but then it cuts back and
I think that's one of the funniest bits.
But then it cuts back and Anya's learning how to do multiplication tables, and that's hilarious.
It's this really weird. It's in a weird way. I don't know if you'll agree with me, Drew. It's like a sort of Mr. and Mrs. Smith meets The Incredibles in my mind is the sort of vibe I get of it. It's it's almost like a spy versus spy situation, but you also have, and then there's wholesome family fun in the middle of it, and it's just it's weird that a show with all these different elements that shouldn't work together does end up working together.
If you need,
I really recommend.
If you need a feel good show, then that's your best bet right now. It just finished. I'm pretty sure it just got midway through the season, so it'll come back in October, I believe.
They'll be bringing up part 2, which is great. The one thing I would say is don't expect too much in terms of plot right now. There's definitely an overarching plot in the anime, but it is very slow going. Because that is more focused on the wholesome family stuff.
Well, because that is what slice of life animes are. It's they're really their plot, and I'm doing air quotes right now, isn't that deep. It's more just about this is a cute scenario, so we're just gonna see what these people's daily lives are, and we might get to the plot eventually. So that's kind of,
even though this anime deliberately says it's Lloyd's mission is to avert a terrorist plot to start another war between these two countries.
But that's it. But the show is more about that. But the show is more about Anya learning how to do fractions or something
The funny thing is Anya does. To be fair, Anya, since she can read minds, she does believe that by doing better in school, she is going to preserve world peace. If you remember, it's this show's ridiculous. It's awesome. I do think people should go watch it.
I agree, but but that was your pick. And Randy, what do you? Howdy. What have you been playing, listening to, watching? Oh, sorry.
So last week, I watched Vice for the first time, which is the story of Dick Cheney, the vice president of George W. Bush. So kind of how he came up, because he had stints as the chief of staff, defense secretary, and things like that before he became vice president, which he didn't initially want to, sort of situation, but he kind of saw that he could influence George W. Bush and kind of just be oh, I'll take care of all the boring stuff, and then he lists off what the boring stuff is, and it's actually all the a lot of important things, and so it's kind of him being a puppet master there, and then how we responded to 9/11, and figuring that whole situation, and then like the Iraq War and things like that. And so it was interesting. I was both angry, but also a bit, I don't know, confused, but also somewhat understanding, because it's like, dude, that's a tough situation. Like, what do you... I wouldn't necessarily know what to do. It doesn't mean that those atrocities were good, but it's just like, that's a tough decision.
Yeah.
So I thought it was done well. Seth, have you seen Vice? I know Drew hasn't.
Yeah.
I have not, but I do know, and I'm so sorry that this is my only way of really connecting with this film. I think Sam Rockwell plays George W. Bush, which is like kind of great casting if you know who that is.
I'm not familiar.
Sam Rockwell has done like a couple of different movies. He's done like he was in Seven Psychopaths. This is not the right movie to pull him from. He did
Also, Steve Carell did Donald Rumsfeld, and that was amazing.
That's funny. That's great. Sam Rockwell also was he was in Iron Man 2. He was Hammer in that. Not the best. I know that's probably not the best role to pick for him, but like
I liked Hammer.
I
found him funny. There's nothing wrong with Hammer. I think they should bring Justin Hammer back.
Hammer. I think you liked Sam Rockwell. I think.
Well, yeah.
I agree. He's also great.
Yeah. They might bring him back because they might bring him back in Armor Wars. But I'll let you be about Vice.
But I mean, like that's a Adam McKay movie, though, right? Like, if I remember correctly, with Vice, he did like Big Short.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he does some great movies.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this film. So yeah, and then my rotten pick of the week is just Star Wars: Attack of the Clones, Star Wars Episode 2, and I will not elaborate further.
Did you just rewatch that? Okay.
No, I didn't rewatch it. It's on my YouTube movies to buy, and I'm like, that. Ooh.
I want to call back to one of our very first episode where my friend Ian said that was his favorite, and then didn't explain why. Shout out to you, Ian. Good times.
Oh my god.
Okay, well, I believe that is about it, unless you guys have more to add. Doesn't sound like it. Oh.
I think I will add one thing, and I think just staying sort of on topic of it, it's like you guys said that like you don't want a Kenobi season 2, and I kind of agree. I feel like things are kind of wrapped up to where I don't really feel like I need a season 2, but I feel like the way things are going, I do think it is likely that there might be one greenlit. I don't know, with the reception of the show and like how fans are like talking about it, I think there might be a good likelihood. What would, if they did have to, like, let's say they did have to put out a season 2, or if it's, what would you want out of it?
Oh God, my initial response is I don't want a season 2.
Yeah,
but
I was saying not to happen.
If it, like, okay, theoretically, gun to your head, there's a season 2 happening no matter what. What do you want?
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Okay, actually, no, I have the answer to this, and a couple people might know it, but I would want it to tie into Fallen Order. And I would want him to meet up with Cal Kestis, and then Cal's big idea was like, hey, let's find these force-sensitive kids, and Kenobi still in the sense of like, I don't think reforming the Order is a good idea, but maybe they have to go and like save a couple kids from the Inquisitors. And then by the end, they're like, hey, kid, go live your life. We're not going to make you join a cult. And that's the moral of the story is don't join a cult. The end. But I don't think I would put Vader in it. I think Vader had I think they had a really good moment.
Obi-Wan from now till episode 4.
Yeah. I'd
say what...
Oh, sorry,
you
go ahead.
You go.
I was going to say, like, they had a really good moment and a really good, like, rematch, but, like, if they tried to do it again, it would just be like, all right, we're trying the same grounds over and over.
It would cheapen it. Yeah, it would definitely cheapen their confrontation in 4. I feel like this is a good place to, like, end things for now between Obi-Wan and Vader. So I agree with that.
Definitely. I think if they were to do a season 2, they probably won't do it because it's a live action show. And if they're going to do something weird, it'll more likely be like in a comic or animated. But having Obi-Wan learn from Qui-Gon and kind of delve into like the wills and stuff, like I believe that happened when Yoda experienced that in Clone Wars. Yeah. That could be kind of cool. Have it be a bit more like trippy and stuff. That could be interesting. But yeah, if they're like, and then maybe it picks up almost immediately, and like let's say Reva is like, I don't know, hanging out with Kenobi for like a little bit or whatever.
And she's like I changed my mind. I want to kill the kid again.
No, but let's say she shows up like in episode 3 or whatever, and she's like, I'm still struggling to figure out where's my place in all of this. And they kind of like, I don't know, have some sort of like heartfelt thing. And let's say it's like 2 episodes after Obi-Wan has learned a couple things from Qui-Gon and stuff like that. But I'd still would rather just not. It was good. It was concise. And I think it wrapped up nicely.
I agree with that.
So yeah. Disney, as much as you want to, don't do another season of it. Do a spin-off show of like The Path, talking about maybe where Reva's going, and then like Roken and what he's doing. Yeah. Do that.
Or if you're gonna do another Obi-Wan Kenobi thing, make him young. I feel what is Padawan Obi-Wan? Well, okay, we've seen Padawan. What does he look like when you first met Qui-Gon? Like that's if you want to show this character again, that's where you show. And then, like Randy said, that's probably better in an animated sense. But yeah, I don't. This had such a really good beginning, middle, and end. It was paced well, so I think like we can. This don't need to be another series. Like this is good.
No, yeah, I'm like the only reason I bring this up is like I said, I do think that like based some of the reactions and the way, and granted, actors talking is just sometimes just actors talking, but it does feel like that we are. It feels like the groundwork is being prepared for like an announcement of like maybe not now or even a year from now, but I do think there might be a chance that there could be a season 2 of Obi-Wan, and I do kind of wonder like. I don't think there really needs to be, but if there was, I do agree with Randy. I think the biggest thing is developing more on like what Obi-Wan learns from Qui-Gon, and maybe tying things into Jedi Fallen Order would be cool. Maybe I don't know. I'm not the biggest like Clone Wars animated fan, but maybe like they could try tying up some loose ends with that. I know like Cody is coming back in like Bad Batch season 2, and apparently that's a big deal. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm being very disrespectful to Clone Wars fans by saying like that's a big deal. But
yeah, you incredibly are. Watch Clone Wars. Everyone, Seth is not a real Star Wars fan. He has not seen Clone Wars.
If it's not anime, I don't watch it. As proven, that's the only really Star Wars animated series I completed was Visions.
That's a good point.
Tune in to possibly 2 weeks from now's episode.
But
spoilers.
I think it's like it's one of those things where I think now that like where fans are feeling is because Kenobi kind of gave them a taste of like Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen back in their respective roles, and people like love that. People are like now wondering, it's like, how do we get them more into it? Maybe put them in an animated series or something. Oh God, actually, now I'm definitely being disrespectful to Clone Wars fans. I'm sorry.
Wow,
it was an animated series.
Everyone, all right, everyone, forget what we said earlier. Our fresh pick of the week, like it is always, is Clone Wars. Especially to you, Seth. Next you're gonna say you really wish they had like more development for Ahsoka.
All right.
Like I really wish they had development for Ahsoka.
Okay.
I wish Ahsoka just had like a whole series where like we saw her from a Padawan and grew up.
Yeah, I really wish there was a really cool fight scene on Mandalore between Ahsoka and Darth Maul. I don't know why I'm thinking of this. I just think it'd be really cool if they had that somewhere.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Okay, well, I think we're a bit. All right, I think we're a bit past overdue. So, I'm gonna say call it as long as you guys are.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for listening in. Hope you enjoyed and stay fresh.